All right, next page is where we're going to qualify these folks. All right, here's where we're at. We got a house under control. The seller has told us, okay, see what you can find in the way of buyers now. I'm out, or I'm going to be out in the next few days, or I'll get out a few days after you put somebody in, which is a good point. Some of them you're going to get vacant. Some of them they are not going to move till you find that tenant buyer. And we've had all of the above. And the ones that are going to stay in the house, we let them show the house, don't we, Scott?
Yeah, we coordinate that up front.
Huh?
We coordinate that up front.
Yeah. Who better to show the house than the people living in it? We just tell them, don't discuss dollars with the people who come see the house. Anything else, tell them what they need to know. And tell us when they've arrived. Now, we got to call them. We make an appointment, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Scott?
Yes.
And then we call the seller and tell them that we're sending them over at 4 o'clock or whatever, and go ahead and show it and let us know if they showed up, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, then somebody follows up with them to see if that they, after they've gone there, and finds out what their interest is.
We've done 2 of them where they've been over an hour away. The only time we ever saw the house was when we signed it up. The seller did the rest, and we closed at the lawyer's office and got a check from it.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, I remember Scott, we live in Mandarin, it's on the south side of Jacksonville, and Scott came in one day with these houses his house in Fernandina Beach, which is, gee whiz, you need a GPS to get up there. It's way up on the north side. Probably, I don't know, 50 miles from my house. I don't know how far it is, but it's a long ways. And I told him, I said, man, that's too far away, don't go up there. But he went. Okay. He got under contract. And it wasn't long before somebody came in, and that was the house we got 10 grand out of, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yep. Good thing he didn't do what I told him to do. But never went back, did you?
No.
Went up there one time, saw the house, got it under contract, never went back. Just sent buyers up there, seller showed house. And we got another one up there now, don't we?
Yep.
All right. So that makes a case for you guys. See, don't get hung up on your one little area you want to work in. Yes, somebody does need to go to the house and see it just for the heck of it, but only one time, and from that point on, send buyers to it. If it's vacant, you're going to put a lockbox on it that you're going to get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and they're going to be able to walk through when you give them the code. If it's not vacant, just call the sellers and tell them they're coming. You never need to go back. So you can cover a big, vast area. In fact, if I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, could I sell houses in Dallas, Texas this way? I know a couple that used to live in Pennsylvania are kind of doing that. Of course, they do have boots on the ground up there. All right, qualifying them. Now, I can tell you real simply and easily that our qualifying process is a whole heap easier than any lending institutions. First, I want to know their income. And, well, first I want to know how much money they got, of course, but if they pass that test, and most don't, you're going to get a lot of applications that have way less money than you're willing to accept. So let's talk about that. How much are you willing to accept? Well, frankly, that's a personal decision on your part. But I'm going to give you a little bit of warning on this one. Guys, if you put somebody in a house and you don't get enough upfront deposit from them, all you're doing is creating a future problem that you have to take care of when it arises. If you're putting somebody in a $200,000 house and they're giving you a month's rent and $1,000, they shouldn't be moving into a $200,000 house. And you shouldn't be letting them in there. Because it's absolute, certain default. The more money you get out of them, the less you are concerned about what they do or don't do. And just remember, that upfront non-refundable option deposit is your paycheck. That's how you're getting paid. So if you take first one that comes along because they say they want the house and because you're in a hurry, all you're doing is creating your own minefield, and it's going to blow up and take your legs off. I would rather have a vacant house than put somebody in it that I know should not be in the house. And how do you think I learned this? I can't tell you how many years it took me to figure out to be a little bit more selective about who I put in, and then I don't have all that crap on the back end. I hear these horror stories all the time about these tenants and these landlord-tenant issues. And I can tell you right now, I don't even need to hear past the first sentence, and I know who's at fault. And it's not the tenant. It's the landlord, because they haven't taken time to learn their craft. This is a business like any other business. And the only security you got against default is the size of that deposit. And even then, that's not security, but I promise you this, the bigger the deposit, the less they default. And the smaller the deposit, the more they default. I sold 32 houses in the early 80s with nothing down. 32 of them. Guess how many of them I got back? 32 of them. Every single one of them came back. Half of them never even made the first payment. And that, my friends, is why we have the housing crisis we have right now. People were buying houses that had no business buying houses. Common sense would say they have no business buying houses, but there was no common sense in the marketplace, only greed. And we are right back where we were then, with the programs where we're putting people in houses with nothing down or very little down. So we're going to fix this problem. Let's start over and do it again. And it's going to continue in a cyclical format. As long as you put people in houses that cannot afford those houses, we're always going to have a mess to clean up a few years after all these programs hit the market. But on the other hand, from the other side of that, it stimulates the economy. It puts people in the houses. It gets money flowing. It has its benefits, but not without the downside. Anyway, I'm going to check the down payment first. If they got enough money, then we'll continue the conversations. If they don't got enough money, there's no reason to talk about all the other stuff. So I was getting at how much. I'm going to tell you the minimum you ought to take on a deposit is 3% of the sales price. That's the minimum on a lease option. And I can tell you, you can get more. And if you can't get more, it's because you're in a war zone. If you can't get more, it's because you're in a crappy area nobody wants to live in that's got any money. Get out of the crappy areas and you'll get larger deposits. If you are going to work in the crappy areas, you're going to get that which you sow. Go to bed with dogs, you get up with fleas. You can write that one down if you want. If you get nice houses in nice neighborhoods, you're going to get people who can come in with big chunks of money. And the very simplicity, the higher price those houses get, the more those big chunks of money are. That's just the nature of the beast. So you get to decide where you want to market. Market in the nice houses. The kind you can brag about when your friends and relatives come to town and you take them for a ride and you say, hey, I own that one, I own that one, I own that one. Yeah. All right, income. A good rule to follow is that their fixed monthly payments plus the new house payment you're putting them into should not equal more than 50% of their gross revenue for the family. Your lending institutions will not let it exceed 43%. I'm okay with it being 50%. But yes, your fixed monthly payments, such as car payments, furniture payments, whatever, fixed. For example, utilities and insurance are not considered a fixed monthly payment. But any installment payment that they're making is. Student loan is a fixed monthly payment. Take all those fixed monthly payments and add them up, and now add the new proposed house payment to it, or rent to it, and that total should not exceed more than 50% of the total gross income for the family. meaning 2 working people, you get to count all the income. And then the luxury that you have that you don't have with bank qualifications are that you get to bend the rules a little bit. For example, they're not going to get a loan unless they have provable income. However, do some people make money where they can't exactly prove it to satisfy the lender? Yes? I mean legal now. Okay. People do all kinds of cool things on the side. Look, if they can prove to me that they actually make this money, then I'm going to factor it in. But I'll tell you for sure that when you get past 50% income to debt ratio, all you're doing is setting them up for failure. Because remember, first, income taxes come out of that gross income, and then there's things like entertainment and gasoline and clothing and utilities and cell phone bills and all that other stuff that sucks up one's paycheck. And when you put somebody in a position to where there's no money left over to pay all of that stuff, and now it comes down to it where something's got to give, what do you think the first thing that is going to give is? And that is this great big rent payment that they're not going to make in order to be able to pay their cell phone bill so they don't get it shut off, or to be able to buy groceries. So the best thing you can do is not let them get themselves in that position, even though many people will do it blindly walking in with absolutely no consideration to the real math. They want to get into the house so bad they don't even analyze the numbers. They're just hoping for a miracle. Maybe I'll start making more money. Right. Okay? And maybe you won't. And then maybe we'll have this problem later. I don't care if somebody's coming at me and they got $10,000 to put down. It's clearly obvious to me they can't afford that monthly payment. I am not going to put them in the house. And I suggest you to adopt the same philosophy. Now, if I'm doing an axe deal, I'm going to use the exact same screening process. If I wouldn't put them in my house, I'm not putting them in their house. And neither should you, because now you are just setting them up for a problem later. So 50% debt ratio, no more. No more. And plenty of money down. And then have their criminal record checked. Come on, guys, it costs pennies. You can go to ats.com or screeningreports.com or a million others. You can go to findtheseller.com. That's our friend Cameron Dunlap's site. He charges, $20, $25 for a whole report on them. Probably money well spent. But check their criminal record. Now look, I'm not really all that concerned that they had a problem with the law, but I am concerned if they were an axe murderer, I want to know about it. Huh? Don't you? If they're a serial killer, it'd be best we know. I just want to see what's on there. I can't ever remember turning anybody down because they had some kind of a criminal. Well, on the other hand, what if they were convicted for dealing drugs?
Yes.
How many drug dealers do you know that ever stopped dealing drugs? Well, probably better. How many drug dealers do you know would be a better question, right? If they have been dealing drugs, you think there's a real good chance that they're going to continue dealing drugs? Yes? And probably out of your house? And do you know that if they get caught dealing drugs out of your house, the government can take your house? Probably not a good thing for you to do is get involved with drug dealers. You also know that from time to time, drug dealers tend to actually kill people? Huh? Or get killed, and do you really want the blood all over your carpet? These decisions you get to make. And if they got a criminal record, you have every right to just say, no, you're too scary for me. All right? But it kind of depends on the crime, doesn't it? All right, now this next one is size of the family. This is common sense. If I got a 3-bedroom, 2 house and I got a family with 8 kids, what's going to happen to this house? Yep, it's going to go through a meat grinder, isn't it? Okay, so am I intentionally putting people in there that are going to destroy my house? And am I setting myself up to have them create a mess? Yeah, so I get to make the decision. Is this too big of a load for this house or not? And the same with pets. You can put people in there. You can put all the pets you want in there. And frankly, I am not against pets. I have plenty of them. I have 3 horses, a dog, 3 cats, and now 24 brand new chickens. And pets, and then other pets that I'm really not sure we even have, but I know they're there somewhere. But I tell you what I don't have. I don't have any killer dogs, and I'll never have any killer dogs, and I don't want anybody in my house with killer dogs. And regardless of what your feelings are, dogs kill people. Just had Rottweiler kill a little boy here 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's all over the news. Rottweiler, a little boy got out, ran across the street. Now, this wasn't the Rottweiler's fault. Well, it was. The dog did kill the boy, but the Rottweiler was tied to a tree in the home where he lived. And yes, the boy went to the Rottweiler. But just the same, if that would have been a collie, the boy would be alive today, wouldn't he? So, make your own decisions on the dogs, but if I know they got a killer dog, I don't want them in my house. I just don't want them there. And if you're a dog lover and that pisses you off, get over it. I'll send them to you if you let me know you want them. And then the last one is meganslaw.com. You should do a Megan's Law check just to make sure you don't have any registered sex offenders. Because, guys, if you have a registered sex offender, is it going to come back and haunt you when the rest of the world finds out about it? They have access to Megan's Law, too. And if you put a registered sex offender in your house, there's no doubt you're going to have problems with the neighborhood. Next thing you know, you're going to be on the news. So, make your own decisions. But you should
Ron,
at least
can
do
I
the
add a
things
couple
that
of
are on
those?
that page. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There's several other things that we also do to add to your list. One is employment probability. We call the employer, and we make sure that they have employment probability for 12 months.
Oh, okay, employment probability. So you call the employer and say, are you about to fire this guy? What's the chances of them being there for 12 months? That's probably a good move.
Yes.
Now, we do check paycheck stubs. And
well, that shows that they are still there, but
Correct.
it doesn't show that the possibility of them staying.
Correct.
The other thing that we also do is past landlord. If the potential tenant buyer has been there for less than 2 years, we'll just use 1. But if they've been there for less than 2 years, we ask for the current landlord and the past landlord.
okay.
And we double check and make sure that they've been good tenants, because especially if we're passing them on as
All
an
right.
X deal.
That's a little bit more than we do. I'll tell you what my biggest pre-screener is, how much of money they got. Because the truth is, if they got thousands of dollars, I know they're going to behave, because they know if they don't, they're going to lose it. That's my biggest protection device. So I'm telling you, I know this is hard for you to get and stomach, but I frankly don't care all that much if I got enough of their money. Because the reality is, if they don't pay the rent, what's going to happen? I'm going to evict their butt and keep their money. And they know it. And it couldn't be more clear. So if they act up on me, it's just going to cost them, that's all. Oh, what if they tear up the house? Well, normally they don't, but if they do, they're paying for it. I'll go lease option it out as is, or I'll go fix something and put somebody else in at a higher price or whatever. But I'm telling you that all these things you lay awake at night worry about just really aren't reality most of the time. But it all comes down to how much commitment do they have in the deal, how much skin they got in the game. Because if they got enough skin in the game, I just am not worried about them anymore.
Hey,
I
Ron,
still don't want child molesters in there. Yeah.
if you happen to let a drug dealer into one of your properties by accident, you want a good way to get rid of them?
What's that?
We send them a letter
Oh,
and let them know that we're notifying all our tenants not to be on the alert or to be worried if they happen to see the local police or the sheriff's department in or around our properties, because we've given them permission to use their new drug-sniffing dog as on our properties as a training ground.
Yeah,
The best I've done is they got the mail at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by 1 they were out.
that's pretty slimy, but it works.
Yeah,
It's really good in
phenomenal.
apartment complexes. Yeah. On page 126, show prospects the house. Frankly, the house should show the house. We don't show the house. The house shows the house. There's a lockbox on it. There's nothing we can show them they can't see for themselves. So we don't go chasing around making appointments to show houses. At least I don't. I don't know how many times we show houses. Maybe Scott can comment on that, but I can tell you right now, I'd rather have a root canal than go show a house. You guys showing houses, Scott? You can tell me the truth.
No, I can't tell you last time. Well, since I've been here, the answer is we've never shown one house.
Never showed one?
Nope.
Okay. The house shows the house. And you guys getting that? Do you know how dangerous it is for you to meet somebody at a house? And you never know who they are. You never know their intent. Especially at night, for crying out loud, when you should be doing something besides showing houses. Let the house show the house. Well, who's worried about them coming in and stealing something if there's a lockbox on the door? Who's worried? All right, well, what are they going to steal? What's in the house? These houses aren't even staged. What's in the house? Range refrigerator? You know what? No, they're not going to take the copper. Remember, you got the neighbors watching the place, don't you? They're not going to take the copper, and you're not in a war zone. The properties that they know nobody's watching is the ones they go in and take the copper from. They're not going to a nice neighborhood and take the copper out of the house. Every once in a while, they might remove an appliance, but I'm telling you right now, I'd rather go down to Lowe's and spend $300 to buy a new range than to go show houses. That's the worst case scenario, isn't it? Huh? And that's assuming they're not even going to provide the range. If they steal it, the house now comes without a range. And they just don't do that, guys, in the nicer properties. You quit worrying about them stealing stuff. Now, of course, there's always going to be an exception where somebody's going to steal something from you. Yes? Well, so what? Cost of doing business. At least they didn't steal your sanity from you by going out showing houses day in and day out to people who won't buy them. Let the system work. Lockbox on front door. A little paperwork on countertop. They can open the lockbox themselves if you give them the combination, and ours is 0. Let them go in. They'll put the key back. Tour the properties once a week to make sure the key's in the box. Keep the signs in front of the house. Let the system work. People will go in. They will call you. You can call them if you want. They will contact you sometimes by email. Sometimes they scan the form and send it to you. Sometimes they pick up the phone and call, and you call them. This is not hard to do. But don't complicate it. And Corey, where all the crap is going to go wrong? What's going to go wrong if you don't do anything because you're so afraid of something happening? All right, let's check. There's a checklist. We're going to go to page 127, and we're going to talk about the meeting because the meeting is an important part of this process. This is the almighty meeting. This is where you get to the point where you actually want to meet this person that you like based on the paperwork you've received and the conversation that you or yours has had with them. This means, of course, they've seen the house. You do not have a meeting until they've seen the house and say they want it. Then, and only then, do you have a meeting if they have enough money to satisfy you and somebody's had a conversation with them about how much they can pay per month. What's the most you can put down and what's the most you can pay per month. Then if you like your answers, then you have the meeting. The meeting can be anywhere you want it to be. If you have an office, it might be in your office. I don't like you meeting in the home. I hate it when you meet them in the home because they'll pick it apart and find all kinds of things they want to fix. I'd rather you meet at McDonald's than in their house. And I've done a lot of deals at McDonald's and Arby's and Burger King, and because it's such a nice place to meet and it's free and there's no rent and the food is just fabulous. All right, so you have the meeting. And here's the thing, here's what happens at the meeting, and here's the things you want them to bring to the meeting. It's right there on your checklist. You should already have their application. You don't have the meeting till you get their application. Because without their application, you can't tell whether you need to have a meeting. All right? Tell them to bring paycheck stubs, copy of their driver's license. Guys, make sure you get a copy of the driver's license. Why? Because you just don't know who you're dealing with till you make a copy of their driver's license. You could have a straw person in there. And obviously you want to look at the driver's license and see if the picture looks like the person in front of you. And then copy it for your records. And then tell them to bring a deposit check. Whenever we have the meeting, it's clear that the purpose of this meeting is to get your money. And do not come without it. There's no reason to have a meeting if you're not bringing money. Everybody understand that? Yes. Unless you've got nothing better to do in life, there's absolutely no reason to have a meeting unless you're getting the deposit. And this is all about them coming to the meeting to prove to you why you should accept them. And that's what the meeting is about. And so you say to them, we will need a deposit. Bring your checkbook. And then they will say, what? How much of a deposit? And then you will say, we generally get it all. Because by this time we know how much money they want to put down, don't we? All right? And then one of two things will happen. They will either say, okay, in which case you shut the hell up. Or they will say, wow, that's a lot of money to be putting up for a deposit. And then you say, well, what would you be comfortable with? And then whatever answer they give you, you accept. As long as it's $1,000 or more. Minimum deposit, $1,000. By the way, if they cannot bring $1,000, is your meeting premature? Not time to have a meeting. No meeting without money. No money, no laundry. Because until you get their money, you got hot air. And boy, there's a bunch of that out there with these buyers. All right, at the meeting, we're going to answer their questions first. That's the polite thing to do. And then we're going to talk about the down payment. John, you said you could put up $5,000, and frankly, I was expecting more than that. Is there any place else you can get some more money if I accept you? And you'll find out real quick, because John knows that he's right on the edge right now, and he's about to lose this house if he don't come up with the right answer. And whatever he says, then, okay, so are you sure you cannot come up with any more money? You make sure that you believe the answer. Okay? John, you said you could pay $900 a month rent. Oh, frankly, that's considerably less than I'd like to get. What's the most you can pay per month? And you get the answer out of him. And then I say, John, how long of a term do you want? Now, if it's an axe deal, we've already established it's a 10-year term, haven't we? Any other deal, I don't care what the term is. How long do you want, John? You might care. I don't care. And whatever John says, fine with me. What do you want, John? 1 year? 2 years? 3 years? I won't do more than 3 years. 3 years at a time. Okay? All right. I mean, when I'm leasing it out on a sandwich, or if I own it and it's subject to, if I own it. Okay, so let them tell me the term. Whatever they're comfortable with. Guys, the whole thing is to try to make them comfortable with this transaction. You're not there to pre-screen the crap out of them. You're not there to make them feel bad. You're there to give them hope and make them feel glad that they found somebody so easy to do business with. And you should be easy to do business with. And then we have the discussion about, okay, well, I like what I hear so far. It looks like we can work together. And then you discuss the process. When you get the terms worked out, you know where you're at, you know you want them, and say, okay, well, I'm going to set this up with the attorney, and it'll probably take him a couple, 3 days, and we'll let you know. Usually we call the attorney right there and set up the appointment to close. But, of course, by this time we know that the rest of the money is available if we haven't received it from the tenant buyer. And sometimes they try to pull that game on you. They come in there, and then you find out, well, they said they got 10 grand, but they really don't have 10 grand. They expect to get 10 grand in 2 weeks. Well, you should know that before you have the meeting, guys. And then you talk about this 30-day warranty. We're going to be responsible for all the repairs for the first 30 days. After that, it's all you now. You are 100% responsible for all of the repairs. That's a condition of you having the option to buy the property. Any questions? I have never, ever had one even say anything other than, no questions. Not once. Have you, Scott?
Nope. Nope, not once.
Have you, John? No. Stephanie? Huh?
No.
Never. You'd think they'd bitch about that, wouldn't you? But they don't. They're willing to accept the responsibility. Then we talk about the late penalty, and definitely want to have that conversation. Because my late penalty is 10% after 5 days late. And I enforce it. John, there will be a late penalty provision in your lease agreement that if you're 5 days after 5 days late, it's 10% of the payment amount. I just want you to know that we do enforce that. And is there any reason to believe you're going to be late? Well, no. Okay, well, it's a non-issue, isn't it? So I don't want it to be a surprise to them. And then if this is an axe deal, I explain to them then. Here's how this works. I have a lease option agreement with the seller. I'm going to assign you that agreement, and your $6,000 will go to me as an assignment fee. You will take over my position. You will start making payments directly to the seller, and of course, by this time they know the terms of the agreement that they're making payments on. And if it's a 10-year lease, you got 10 years. 10 years, long as you need to stay in the house. Now, guys, take a look at this from a buyer's perspective and look at the advantages they have. They walk into this house for a few $1,000s. They got a 10-year lease, 10 years to get their credit cleaned up. They get the advantages of the debt pay down, which is one of the things you want to make darn sure they understand here. Every month that goes by, your purchase price gets less and less and less, John. They get, if they want to sell the property, they can sell the property and keep all the profit. So if 10 years from now, if the loan's paid down to 2/3 of what it is now and they decide they want to sell everything above that amount, they get to keep. Boy, they love that. Their eyes light up when they hear that. And you tell them, hey, look, where else can you pay rent and actually get credit for the debt reduction? No place else. So this is not a hard sale to your tenant buyer. And then, of course, if you have other issues, such as we're about to get into, then you have to discuss those as well. And any other details that need to be told, that's where you tell them. Make sure everybody's clear. But remember, simple language, guys. Don't get complicated, and don't get diarrhea of the mouth, and don't cause problems by talking too much. You definitely have to get the point across. You have to tell them about this assignment. You have to tell them about the late penalty. You have to tell them that they're doing the repairs. But that's in about one sentence. And if they don't have an issue with it, and I'm telling you they won't, simply move on. Can you do that? Yes. All right. Let's look at the letter of intent on page 130 because we really actually do use this at the meeting. All this is a place to record the terms we just agreed upon, and we get them to sign off on it so we can send it over to the attorney along with the lease option agreement. That's all it is. If you don't want to use it, I don't care, but you might as well. It's pretty simple. It just says that the monthly rent will be $1,500. And then it'll begin whenever it begins, and the purchase price is $200,000, and my option to purchase will expire June 30th, 2015. Now, this is a letter of intent. If I'm leasing a property I own, how do I know that? Or if I'm leasing one that I'm sandwich leasing, how do I know? Because if it weren't, I wouldn't have a fixed purchase price, would I? Would I? My purchase price would be the loan balance at the time they purchase it, wouldn't it? Which we're coming to here. It says they're giving me $10,000, and they're giving me $1,000 now and $9,000 at closing, and the first month's rent of $1,500 and $300 for the attorney. That's all it says. And then it says that I'm giving them $150 a month credit from the purchase price because I have successfully negotiated my down payment assistance program with them. And we'll get to that when I get to it, because there's an addendum in here for it. All right, on page 132 is new. We discussed this yesterday. What to do if the buyer wants to get a loan within the next year or two and wants credit for the assignment fee toward their down payment. I've laid it out for you step by step what to do. First, you lease option it from the seller. Then you locate the tenant buyer with $10K in this example. Then your company lease options to the buyer with a new agreement with the same terms as your old agreement, but you raise the purchase price by the amount you're collecting from your tenant buyer. In this case, it's $10,000. So if I'm lease optioning it for $190,000, what would I be lease optioning it to them for? $200,000, with a $10,000 non-refundable deposit showing. You then simply assign your lease to the seller and get a release from your original seller. That's it. Simple. With your attorney involved. On the next page, what to do if my buyer is ready to get a loan and there's still more owed than it's worth. We touched on that yesterday as well. You get the seller to sign an addendum that they will cooperate in a short sale at that time. Said addendum enclosed on page 134. It says the parties agree that should the payoff of the existing mortgage that now encumbers the aforedescribed real estate exceed the assigned lender appraised value at the time of the exercise of the option as determined by the appraiser chosen by the buyer's lender, seller shall pursue a short sale to buyers. There is no money due seller whether or not closing is conducted as a regular sale or a short sale. Both parties understand there is no guarantee the lender will accept an amount less than the mortgage balance. Is that pretty clear? In other words, there's no guarantee anybody's going to get anything done, but we're going to darn sure try, and I agree to try as the seller. That's brand new, incidentally. Even Scott doesn't have that addendum in its current status because I just changed it the other day. All right, so now I want to point out something to you about this. You guys need to think through this clearly, if you will. Let's just say, for kicks and grins, that you have got a high-priced house. Oh, I don't know. Let's pick a number. Let's say we got $1 million house with $1.4 million loan on it. Is that possible? Crap, they're all over the country, aren't they? Okay. And what's the payment on this house? Payment on this house is going to be about $8,000 a month, give or take. My best guess. Okay? And you decide you want to do an axe deal. Because this is kind of an axe deal, isn't it? Because an $8,000 payment would make your pantyhose pucker up, wouldn't it? Huh? Well, it wouldn't bother me because all I would do is ask myself, what can go wrong and what can I do now to fix it? And I would put something in my agreement with the seller that simply says that I do not intend to make any payments any month this house is vacant. Period. By the way, who's making the payment now? Seller. Correct. So I would simply tell the seller, okay, I'll go out and I'll find somebody who can live in this house and cover your payment, or I'll try. But it's got to be a long-term deal. All right, now if we're successful in finding that person, first of all, somebody buying a $1.4 million house think I can possibly get more than $5,000 out of them. Probably get a pretty good chunk based on my ability to explain to them the situation. Say, look, you must move into this house and make this $8,000 payment till the cows come home. Every single month the debt gets paid down. Do you realize that a 30-year loan pays off the exact same time whether there's $1 million owed, $2 million owed, or $5 million owed? Okay? Regardless of what's owed, it gets paid down every month, doesn't it? Hello? Yes. All right. So if the buyer comes in and they can move into this house and they can live there 10 years, there's very little chance that the debt pay down and the appreciation is not going to put equity back into this property. But what if it doesn't? See, that is your chance to jump in the middle and negotiate a short sale on this property and probably make 6 figures by fixing the problem. So what if 4 years from now there's still a $1.2 million balance and the buyer wants to buy, but they're only willing to pay $1 million? Well, this is your chance to go get the bank to discount the debt down to about $500,000. And you get in the middle of that short sale. I got me a cash buyer here waiting. Get in the middle of the short sale. Huh? All short sales are cash. That doesn't mean I have to come up with the money, but it does mean that I have to negotiate it much less than my buyer's willing to pay. I got my buyer in the house. My buyer's going to have a contract with me or with the seller, but the seller already knows they're not getting any money. Okay? The buyer can go get financing if the bank takes what the value, what the buyer offers, and reduces the debt. Obviously, the buyer's not going to be even applying for financing if they can't go get it, but they got plenty of time. Point is, it doesn't make any difference what's owed on the property if there's a cooperative seller there that will do a short sale. And by the way, is it in the seller's best interest to short sale the property if they get a chance? Now they're out of it. They're out of it. Yeah, they're going to take a credit ding. So what? So what? At least it's over. No more loan. Because if the bank doesn't do it, they're probably going to wind up getting the property back. You will not have any problem getting a bank to discount a debt down to at least market value when the cash buyer is sitting here ready to pay it off.
But at that point, the property being paid.
The loan is being paid. That's okay. Well, you're under the misconception that you have to be in default to negotiate a short sale. The seller is making it very clear to the bank that I have got a cash buyer for this, and if you don't take this offer, you're going to own this property. Well, I'm not saying that. Yeah. But the buyer might. If the buyer wants to go cash out of this thing, they can walk out of this thing if they want to. They don't have to continue making those payments, and if they see there's no end to the tunnel, they very well may do that. Because if they can qualify to buy a house and qualify for $1 million loan, they can go anywhere they want and get it. And the pathetic amount of money they gave me to get into this house, they've long since quit worrying about that because it's not going to be that much money. So they can walk. They're not stopping them from walking. All right, wait a minute. I'm answering questions without a microphone. I can't do that. You guys were supposed to stop me from doing that. All right, do I have a question over here? I'll take it.
How we're going to collect a fee when this bank sees that in the event we put on the HUD-1 that, for instance, second mortgage or assignment fee of 6 figures there.
No, it wouldn't be on the HUD. It wouldn't be on the HUD-1 that the bank sees. At that point, I would probably make an offer to the bank myself for the $500,000, and then I'd work out the details based on what my buyer can do. But that is going to take some finesse in the middle there if I'm going to get that big of a discount.
Absolutely. So we're going to have to dance around with the attorneys and yourself.
If I had to, I'd do transactional funding on it.
There you go.
I'd use transactional funding to close on the $500,000, and you can get your attorney involved, let them help you do that, because frankly, that's going to be a little different in most states that you're in. I have a question up front here. If I had to, I'd go raise the $500,000 and buy it myself, then sell it to the buyer.
How do you get to permission again to?
Is that microphone on?
Okay.
All right.
How do you get permission from the seller to negotiate with the bank?
How do I get permission?
Yeah,
Well,
for the short sale.
Addendum just shows you, says to the buyer that I will cooperate in the short sale whenever you're ready. It's right there. It's on page 134. And remember, it's in their best interest. It ain't like you got to beg them to do it. They'd be happy to do it whenever. And I can tell you for sure that a buyer is willing to take a credit hit rather than have this loan stay out there forever in their name. And it's not that big of a credit hit whether you guys know it or not. You know, when you go do a short sale, it's 50, 60 points tops. It's a big deal. Big deal. All right, any others?
Got one in the back.
Guys, can we do a 10-minute break? Before you go, though,
Got one question in the back.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Can you clarify on page 123? You got a telephone script for potential buyers.
I can't hear a word you're saying.
On page 123,
Yep.
your telephone script.
What
It says
about
when
it?
answering the phone? But then on page 113, you say drive them to a voicemail 24 hours. Can you explain the difference again of when you're using?
Well,
The difference?
what if they're calling me from the house for the first time we're talking to them? And I also told you, what if I'm using this to call them? I would just change the first couple of lines. But the script is going to be the same, whether they're calling in or whether I'm calling out, as soon as we get them on the telephone.
So the only phone number that you have would be at the house on that
Correct.
information that they would talk to a live person.
That's right.
That's correct.
All right, before you go, stop. Where are you going? Did I say take a break? A couple of things before you go, because it's going to be our last break. Number one, if you're in here and you have not signed up for the mastermind, you can, just because you're in here. If you're in here, I'm going to let you qualify. But if you don't do this before you leave, you will not be able to do this because we're cutting it off. We are full. All right, and what was the cost on this again? Nothing. All right, and don't do this if you're not going to show up, because we're capacity and every seat's going to count. You want something?
No, well, I haven't sent it to her.
Oh, well, just give it to me. Huh? All right. Well, there's nothing left on it. Once Nikki gets it, it's done, Robert. All right. Okay. Secondly, you got this sheet for the Business Management Boot Camp. This is the price you're going to get here and here only, and you guys can use points for this. And you got to see Nikki to do that. All right? And I want to see you next month. And lastly, the Gold Club. You're all Gold Club members. If I can convince you to sign up for a year and pay the $649 and save yourself 1 month plus, I will give you my lead selling machine course, which is a whole other multi-$1,000 a month income stream built within your business. This teaches you how to sell leads to other industries that you get from buyers and sellers by asking them a few more questions than that which is on the sheets that they're already programmed to ask. It's a whole business, all automated, all done automatically for you, automatically collects their money, drops it in your account, and this is truly a real business in a box right there. It's a $500 course. So if you're going to be in the Gold Club, might as well sign up for a year. I promise you we won't ding your card for the $59 if you sign up for the year. All right? try your best to read questions that we write so crappily, and this is one of them. Sorry. Okay, are lease purchase tenants allowed to make changes to the house such as adding a deck? Not without your permission, they are not. However, you are allowed to if you're lease optioning it from the seller and staying in it compared to shown in your agreement. If so, are they made aware of any C of O issues caused by this? Again, they're not allowed to. However, I can tell you that lease option tenants have done some really cool things to houses that I've had in the past before they walked out of them. I know for a fact I've had one build a really nice deck in the backyard. I had a tenant, I swear you, put a pool in the backyard one time. An in-ground pool. Now granted, he was in the pool business, but still, he put an in-ground pool in my backyard, and he lived there about 2 years and moved. God bless him. If you are leasing a home, is it the same as if renting a house regarding the need for obtaining a local town rental permit? I don't. That's a local question. Don't ask me that question. That's a local issue that you should be bringing up at your RIA meetings or, frankly, to your attorney to see what's involved there. Usually the houses you're leasing them from people who already live in them. So I wouldn't think it would be an issue. On straight option high-end houses, what's your favorite strategy to get it sold quickly? If it is, I definitely want to put signs up, and then I'm going to do all the internet stuff that I can. I'm going to build a web page, or I'm not doing all this, VAs are doing it, and I'm going to drive traffic to that web page. For some people, for some reason, you may be under the impression that I do anything different to sell a $2 million house than I do a $1 million or $200,000 house. And you don't. You still got to drive traffic to a specific place, screen out the prospects, and then you got the showing thing. The showing will depend on whether the house is vacant or not. And I'm telling you, if it's not vacant, I'll let the owner show it just as well as I will one of the lower priced properties. And I tell you, you won't be in this business long before you realize that the people with the high-priced houses are no different than the people with the lower-priced ones. They put their pants on the same way. They got the same problems, except theirs might have a zero behind them. They have the same struggles of life, and they're just as easy to talk to, believe it or not. In fact, sometimes they're more easier to talk to because they get it. They're a little more sophisticated, and you don't have to work so hard to educate them. And they realize that you're there to help, and there's very little risk on their part, and some will and some won't.